As in any problem, we have to figure out what is the cause of the problem. We have to be able to measure it, and we have to figure out how we can improve it. And also, as we've talked about in other classes, metrics are really important because you have to have a metrics that is easy to use, easy to understand, and easy to explain to others. So you don't want anything to be too complex. If it's too complex, people won't understand the metric, how to apply it, and they won't utilize it. So we should check our staffing system and evaluate it regularly. And we want to make sure that we're not trying to do the whole system at once, but looking at individual parts of the system to see how individual parts of the system are affecting the bottom line. If you try to make changes all at once, you don't know which change is actually having an impact on the outcomes that you're looking for. So make your changes a bit more incremental so that you're not dealing with a lot of changes all at once, making it really complex to understand your system. So as you can see here, it says evaluate one component at a time by calculating its impact on the relevant KPIs. And again, whether it's productivity or tenure or what have you, get everybody who could potentially be involved in this. Make sure you've got your finance and operations people involved, your accounting people involved, whoever should be engaged in gathering this data. You need to have a relationship with them. So the goal here is, of course, is to get buy-in from everybody about what you're trying to do, why you're trying to do it, and as you can show the connection between staffing outcomes and expenditures made or strategies, you can get buy-in from everybody about the changes that need to be made to improve your process. In terms of ways that we can use technology to enhance the staffing process, resume screening software is a great idea. It has its strengths and it has its weaknesses. What resume software does is it looks for keywords or phrases that typically show up in resumes, so that when we're looking for people with certain kinds of knowledge, skills, and abilities, those are the keywords that we're looking for, so the recruiter doesn't have to go through the tedious effort of reviewing every single resume. So the keyword search software looks for those keywords. Again, it's a time-saving effort, but the problem is you may miss candidates who perhaps didn't use phrasing in the exact way that you want, but there may be other skills and abilities that are implied in there. So again, we want to make sure that we look at the resumes and let the screening software pull the first round of resumes, and then you should look at the remaining ones to see if they actually, if the screening software actually missed some that you thought would be good. And then maybe you need to start thinking about broadening or expanding your search terms. So you can, hopefully you could fine tune that resume screening software to look for the particular KSAs that you want, whether it's implied or directly stated. And so the goal is to really try to fine tune it so it'll work the best for you. But don't rely on software all the time to make it easy, because you will miss candidates, and you need to take care about that. Another thing that you can use to improve the staffing process is applicant tracking systems. This is software that enables you to maintain your database of applicants, job information about the job, as well as how we match the applicant to the job. And that's the goal, is to make sure that we are keeping track of our applicants at every stage of the process, removing them when they ask to be removed from the process, so we keep accurate track of the for flow statistics reasons. And we want to make sure that we can maximize or facilitate the match between the job opening and potential candidates for the job. The HR and line managers oversee the entire recruiting process, from resume review all the way to the new hire data that goes into our HRIS system for our existing employee database. And so, since they're tracking the system from beginning to end, an applicant tracking system, it makes it easier for the HR and the line manager or the hiring manager to be able to share information and know what's going on. So we can point out things to them in the database that they should look for. I don't have to run to their office. I just simply link them to the applicant tracking system and they can see what's going on. So our goal is to facilitate easier and better communication between the HR professional, the recruiter, or the staffing expert, and the line manager or the hiring manager who's doing the work. This decreases costs, speeds up time to hire, and improves our ability to match people to jobs. So this is a really lovely example of what an applicant tracking system would look like, what the interface is like. And so you can see on the column on the far left, the menu, it has the home button, the applications that are in, the candidates, which are the ones that we've flagged that we want to continue through the process, any back office work that needs to be done, job families, how jobs are connected to each other, and how they're related to each other in the corporate hierarchy, the applicant pool, the reporting structure, and administration. So all of these things give us a way to access the information. And so we might have access based on regions. So I know regionally where people are from and what positions they're applying for in my regions. I have an applicant pipeline. I know how many applied, how many were flagged, how many continued through the process, and on and on and on. You can see it ranges from the background check as the last step, and then the first step, which is the applicant entry. And that's one of the things that we want to do to manage the system, and have an easy to utilize and a visually pleasing system in place for us to keep a good, accurate track of our applicants. And again, this helps us particularly with legal compliance because this way we know what our numbers are and it's easy to do the calculations. The Human Resource Information System is all of the software and hardware designed to integrate our staffing process, our employee management system, our compensation system, our benefit system. Everything gets integrated in a human resource information system. And for the purpose of staffing, it enables us to know where we're at in terms of salary ranges, where we're at in terms of the applicants that are applying, what skills they have. This also should integrate the skill database for our existing employees so that we can look at succession planning related issues. We can also look at where we might be able to identify potential internal candidates who might want to apply for a position somewhere else in the company. So again, the HRIS integrates all of the HR systems into one central database that we can use. And so, people would then transition from the applicant database to the employee database, as need be. And so the goal here is we want the system to be well integrated and user-friendly and easy for any hiring manager or HR professional to get access to. We want to be careful, though, that we differentiate between the type of access that HR needs, which would be much more in line with legal compliance issues and more personal data, versus the hiring manager, which they might need to see resumes. So they might have access to the applicant pool, but they may not have access to compensation databases and things like that. So you have to be careful that there's a firewall around the private employee records that management should not have access to, only HR has access to. The company website is a great place for us to advertise job opportunities, enabling people then to link into the applicant tracking system so that they can deposit a resume and an application blank there. It also provides information to people about what who we are as an employer, and so we can communicate our employer brand and our corporate brand to the applicants. So we use it as a marketing tool as well as a tool to funnel people into the applicant database system. We want to make sure that we've got online application portals available, and we want to make sure that if we want to allow people to pre-screen themselves, so they can self-select in and out of a system, we can put up little selection tests up there for people to take. And then if they get a certain score, we can flag them and say, hey, you look like the kind of person that would do well in our company. Why don't you look a little bit more, see if we have a position available for you, and apply. So we do allow for some assessments to be on the website, but remember, we don't include those assessments that people take just from a perspective of marketing. We don't include those in the assessments that we use for hiring people down the line. Those are two separate things. The pre-screening assessments are anonymous. We don't keep track of that. The assessments that are done on the job are definitely ones that we want to keep track of and make sure we know who scored what, so we can accurately make a decision who we're going to hire and who we're not going to hire. A good career site really answers a lot of questions for the applicant right away. So the better job we can do in creating a really lovely portal that people can get all their questions answered, have a really good FAQ available, make sure all the information that people want is there, give them enough information, realistic information, so they can self-select out if it's really not a good match for them. And that would be our goal in having a really good interface. A digital staffing dashboard gives us an interactive environment where we can click on and access information that helps us to monitor our staffing process. So we're going to look at workplace flows. We're going to look at things like that applicant tracking system. That should be a part of our digital database. We should also have access to metrics and be able to calculate metrics, look for turnover rates, skill set of our database, turnover rates, any number of things that are really important for us to have at a glance to know how well we're doing in our staffing process. There are 7 important tips for creating a good digital staffing dashboard. Number 1, you want to make sure you're clear about the drivers for staffing and business success. So what are the important things for business success, and how does our staffing relate to that, so that we are keeping track of key variables that influence our success. We want to make sure we have really clear goals set, hiring and retaining top performers, promoting more from within, our financial return on investment. All of these should be accessible on our digital staffing dashboard. We want to make sure we're prioritizing things that are of highest priority to us and minimize the things that are less important. So we don't want it to be too busy, because then we won't be able to see the key things that are important to us, but we want to make sure we have the most important things on our list. That doesn't mean that we can't collect the other data that might be in a submenu that we can access later, but the things that we want at our fingertips, in our visual line of vision, is the things that are the highest priority to us based on our goals and drivers for good success. You want to make sure that you're presenting appropriate data. Using bar charts, tables, pie charts, graphs, speedometer type displays are all great, but they have to be used properly. Remember, we use a bar chart when we're doing comparisons. We use a line graph when we're showing trends. We use a pie chart when we're looking at how we divide or how we break down the number of employees or the number of budget lines for a whole. So a pie chart looks at how all sub-elements make up a whole, whether it's a whole budget or a whole employee workforce, whether it's demographics or sex or race and ethnicity, and you name it. And so we use those sorts of things. Use colors that impact people. Red means warning, this is a problem. Green means good. Yellow means we should be looking into this so it doesn't become a problem. And so This is really about creative interfaces, and we want to have something that tells us what is good and what is not good at a glance, because otherwise, if it's just black and white, people will ignore it. They won't see where we have problems. So make it easier for people to identify when there's issues and concerns. Assess user comprehension. So make sure when you're setting up these systems that people understand what they're looking at, how they're looking at it, why they're looking at it, and how they're going to use that information. Consider all sorts of dynamic capabilities, such as doing forecasting and projections and scenario plannings. So your interface should enable you to say, well, if I do this, how will that impact my outcomes? If I don't do this, how will that impact my outcomes? And you want to make sure you create a data entry accountability, so that everything is accurately input and is done on time, at its most correct, because if you don't have accurate data, up-to-date data, you are going to have problems being able to make good decisions. So we want those who are going to be responsible for maintaining this database, whether it's the managers or whether it's someone in IT, we want to make sure that we are rewarding them for making sure that this stuff stays current as quickly as possible. Figure 13.5 gives you a really great idea of what a recruiting effectiveness dashboard looks like. And you're going to look at a quality of the hires and how the quality of the hires has changed over time. You want to look at your candidate conversion ratio. How many of them do you get to convert to become full-time employees? And how many times were you able to get your first choice employee? On the lower left-hand box is new hire perceptions of recruiting effectiveness. So we want to look at comparing business units or departments in our company and comparing how people perceive recruiting over time. And so we might have this in terms of comparisons for different outcomes and comparing two different departments. We might also like to see trends like line graphs over time. And in the bottom right, we see candidate conversion factors in terms of each, in the current quarter, whether or not we were able to, how many of them were the resources that we used and how many of them turned into candidates that we ended up hiring. So we're looking at different sources and what are the factors that convinced them to come and want to work for the company. And so we have this data available to us, the things that are the most important to us, we have this available. So we can be tracking this in live time as close as we can, because updates have to be done on a regular basis, to know what's going on with our company. The most important thing to recognize here is that technology enables evaluation. Good technological systems set up in place, a good human resource information system will enable us to keep track of all of our applicants, keep track of our employees, what we know about them, what their KSAs are. It helps us to have a database that enables us to search it, to mine it, for skills and abilities that we want to identify, and helps us to generate really quick reports so we know very quickly which of our current applicants will be useful to us and which of them will not be. Enables us to then keep up-to-date information, who is now moving from applicant to candidate and candidate to finalist, so we can keep track of that stuff. It helps us with legal compliance. There are a lot of factors that we can use. So technology enables us to make our staffing decisions and enables us to more accurately evaluate our staffing process because the data is available for us on a regular basis to access, assuming, again, that it's updated on a regular basis. So technology is our friend in the HR system, but we just want to make sure that we're not allowing technology to make all of the decisions for us, that we're actually allowing the human element to still be a part of that process. Yes, technology gets rid of a lot of bias, but it can also remove people from the pool that might be a non-traditional applicant that we never considered would actually be good for the job. And the software may not identify those people, but our experience as recruiters, we look at these non-traditional candidates and we might be able to argue why this person might actually be good for the job. So technology is a really important tool. It makes things a lot easier for us. It helps us to be in legal compliance, but we shouldn't depend on it 100% to do all of what we need. So this is the end of our class, and I hope you enjoyed our lecture material.